The prison ship dropped out of hyperspace above a dead moon. Inside its cold metal belly, 300 humans sat in chains. They had been traveling for 11 days. They had no idea where they were going. They only knew they would never see Earth again. David Parks sat against the wall with his eyes closed. He was 38 years old, with short black hair and a scar on his chin from an accident years ago. His hands were rough from years of work. He had been an engineer in the Navy before he retired to raise his daughter alone. When the colony ship program opened, he signed up because he wanted to give her a better life among the stars. Now he sat in chains. And that better life seemed very far away. Beside him, his daughter Lily slept with her head on his shoulder. She was 7 years old, small for her age, with her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn jaw. She had not cried once since their capture. David did not know if that was strength or shock. Either way, it worried him. The ship shuddered as it docked with something large. The humans looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say. The doors opened, and the Vreth came in. David had seen them before, during the attack on the colony ship. They were tall, almost 8 feet, with gray skin that looked like whetstone. Their eyes were black and empty, like holes in their faces. They had 4 arms and moved with a strange, jerky motion that made them look like broken machines. The Vreth did not see other species as people. They saw them as tools, resources, things to be used until they broke, then thrown away. A Vreth guard walked down the line of prisoners, looking at each human like a farmer looking at cattle. When he reached David, he stopped. His black eyes moved to Lily, still sleeping against her father's arm. David met the alien's gaze without blinking. He kept his face empty, calm. He had learned long ago that showing fear to predators only made them hungry. The guard made a sound that might have been a laugh, then moved on. They were taken off the ship in groups of 50. David held Lily's hand as they walked through gray corridors that all looked the same. The air smelled wrong, like metal and something rotten underneath. Other prisoners shuffled along beside them, their heads down, their spirits already breaking. David counted his steps. He memorized every turn. He noted every door, every camera, every guard position. His body walked like a beaten man, but his mind was working faster than it had in years. They emerged into a massive open space. Prison Station Keth 7 was built inside a hollowed asteroid. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of cells lined the walls in stacks that went up forever. The noise was overwhelming. Voices and machines and screaming all mixed together. At the center of the space stood a platform. On it waited a single Vreth, larger than the others, wearing black armor that gleamed under the harsh lights. This was Warden Morath, the master of Keth 7. He had broken 17 species. He had crushed rebellions before they started. He had never failed. Morath looked down at the new humans with something like boredom. His translator device crackled as he spoke. You are now property of the Dominion of Vreth. You have no rights. You have no names. You have no hope. Work hard and you will be fed. Resist and you will die. This is your life now. Accept it. Some of the humans wept. Others stared at nothing, already empty inside. A few looked angry, but their anger faded quickly under Morath's cold gaze. David kept his head down. He squeezed Lily's hand gently. Morath's eyes passed over the crowd, then stopped on David. The warden tilted his head, studying him the way a scientist might study an insect. That one, Morath said, pointing. What was his function? A guard checked the datapad. Engineer. Ship systems and reactors. Useful. Send him to reactor maintenance. Morath's gaze shifted to Lily. The child goes to youth processing. David's heart stopped. His hand tightened on Lily's. No, he said. The word came out before he could stop it. The crowd went silent. Every human turned to look at him. Every breath guard raised their weapon. Morath smiled. It was the most terrible thing David had ever seen. No? The warden stepped closer. You tell me no? On my station? In my kingdom? David forced himself to breathe. His instincts screamed at him to fight, to grab Lily and run, to do something. But he had counted the guards. He had seen the weapons. He knew the math taught if he fought now, they would both die. And then there would be no one left to protect her Dot. So David did the hardest thing he had ever done in his life. He let go of his daughter's hand. He lowered his eyes. He bent his head like a beaten animal. Forgive me, he whispered. I was afraid. I will obey. Morath studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. Fear is good. Fear means you understand. He waved his hand. Take them. Guards pulled Lily away. She did not scream or cry. She just looked at her father with those dark eyes, and something passed between them. A promise. A plan. David let them lead him toward the reactor levels. He kept his head down. He shuffled his feet. He looked broken. But inside, behind his empty eyes, something was waking up. Something cold and patient and very, very dangerous. That night, in a cell barely big enough to lie down in, David sat in the darkness and listened to the station around him. He could hear the hum of the reactors through the walls. He could feel the vibrations of the life support systems. He could almost taste the age of the place, the years of neglect, the weakness hiding in every pipe and wire. He had been a good engineer, one of the best. He understood machines the way other people understood music or art. And right now, he was inside the biggest machine he had ever seen. A machine full of weaknesses, full of secrets, full of possibilities. David closed his eyes and began the plan. Somewhere on the station, in a cold room with other frightened children, Lily Park sat alone in the dark. She did not cry. She did not shake. She just waited, patient and still, knowing that her father would come for her, because that was what honey badgers did. They waited. They watched. And when the time was right, they struck. The Vreth thought they had captured sheep. They were wrong. 6 months changed everything, and nothing. David Park woke at the same time every day. He ate the same gray paste they called food. He walked the same corridors to the same reactor tunnels. He worked until his hands bled, then worked some more. He spoke only when spoken to. He never complained. He never resisted. The guards stopped watching him after the second month. He was just another broken human, shuffling through his days until death took him. They had seen it 1,000 times before. The fire goes out, the spirit dies, and what remains is just meat that moves. But David was not broken. He was waiting. Every day, he learned something new about the station. The reactor systems were old, built by a species the Vreth had conquered long ago. They were powerful but poorly maintained. Small cracks ran through the cooling pipes. The backup systems had not been tested in years. The whole thing was held together by habit and luck. David memorized every flaw, every weakness, every place where the wrong tool in the wrong pipe could cause disaster. He was not the only one watching. The humans on Keth 7 had started to organize, slowly and carefully. They passed messages in looks and touches. They traded work assignments to put the right people in the right places. They gave each other hope in small doses, just enough to keep the fire burning. They needed a leader. They found David. It started small. A woman named Grace, who worked in food preparation, noticed that he moved differently than the other broken prisoners. A man named James, who cleaned the guard barracks, saw him counting camera positions one day. A teenager named Tommy, who ran messages between work crews, heard him asking questions about the station's layout. They came to him one by one in dark corners and quiet moments. They asked him what he was planning. He told them the truth. "I'm going to burn this place down," David said, "and I'm going to take my daughter home." They could have reported him. They could have earned favor with the Vreth by betraying his plan. Instead, they asked how they could help. Word spread through the human population like fire through dry grass. The honey badger, they called him. The man who smiled at guards and counted their weaknesses. The man who was already dead inside, they said, and therefore had nothing left to lose. David did not feel dead. He felt more alive than he had in years. Every morning he woke with purpose. Every night he fell asleep with plans running through his head. The station was a puzzle, and he was slowly putting the pieces together. But he could not do it alone. Grace stole chemicals from the kitchen. James mapped the guard schedules. Tommy carried messages between cells. A former soldier named Mike trained small groups in hand-to-hand combat, hidden in maintenance tunnels where no cameras reached. A doctor named Amy stockpiled medical supplies, one bandage at a time, and always. David thought of Lily. He saw her sometimes in the distance, when the youth prisoners were moved between buildings. She looked thinner than before, paler, but her eyes were still the same, dark and watchful, finding him in the crowd and holding on. He could not speak to her. He could not hold her. All he could do was keep planning, keep building, keep waiting for the moment when everything would be ready. That moment came on a day. Like any other, David was working in Reactor Tunnel 7 when a guard named HFY stopped to watch him. HFY was cruel, even by Vreth standards. He enjoyed hurting prisoners. He had killed 3 humans in the past month, all for small violations that could have been ignored. "You," HFY said. "Human, what are you smiling about?" David had not realized he was smiling. He had been thinking about the station's communication array, about the message he had sent 2 days ago, about the ships that might already be on their way. "Nothing, Master," David said. He lowered his eyes. "I was thinking of better times." HFY stepped closer. "Better times? There are no better times for you. There is only this. There is only now. There is only pain." David said nothing. He kept his head down, his hands still, his breathing steady. HFY seemed disappointed by the lack of reaction. He wanted fear. He wanted begging. He wanted to feel powerful. "I have heard rumors," the guard said. "Humans talking in the dark, planning things, dreaming of escape." He leaned in close, his breath hot and rotten. "Is this true?" "I know nothing of rumors, Master." "No? Then perhaps you need motivation to remember." HFY smiled with too many teeth. "I think I will visit the youth center today. I think I will find your daughter. I think I will help her understand what happens to families who keep secrets." Something moved behind David's eyes. Something cold and fast and hungry. But his face stayed empty. His voice stayed calm. "Please, Master. She's just a child. She knows nothing. Then she has nothing to fear." HFY laughed and walked away, already forgetting the broken human behind him. David stood very still for a long time. His hands shook slightly. His heart beat too fast. Inside his chest, the fire that had been burning for 6 months grew hotter. He would not let them touch her again. He would not let them hurt her. He would bring this whole station down around their ears before he let that happen. That night, he sent the final message. 3 days. The pieces were in place. The people were ready. The machines were primed to fail. 3 days, and everything would change. In the youth center, Lily Park lay in her bed and counted the cracks in the ceiling. She had counted them many times before. 97 cracks. 97 lines spreading out from the center like a broken web. She thought about her father. She thought about home. She thought about the day she would see Earth again, blue and green and beautiful, hanging in the black sky like a jewel. 3 days, she told herself. She did not know how she knew, but she knew. 3 days, and the honey badger would strike. She closed her eyes and smiled in the dark. The Vreth had no idea what was coming. The day before everything changed, Warden Morath decided to make an example. He had been hearing whispers. His guards reported strange behavior among the humans. Small things, nothing solid, but enough to make him uneasy. Prisoners who looked too healthy. Work crews that moved too smoothly. Eyes that watched too carefully. Morath had broken 17 species. He knew the signs of hope, and he knew how to crush it. He ordered his guards to search the youth center. They found nothing wrong, but that did not matter. Morath did not need proof. He needed fear. They dragged Lily Park to the main plaza at midday, when all the prisoners were moving between shifts. Thousands of humans stopped to watch as guards threw the small girl onto the cold metal ground. "Bring the father," Morath commanded. David was working in Reactor Tunnel 3 when the guards came for him. They did not explain. They did not need to. The look in their eyes told him everything. He walked to the plaza with his heart turning to ice. Every step felt like a mile. Every breath burned in his chest. He could see the crowd ahead, the platform, the small figure lying on the ground. Lily. She looked up as he approached. Her face was calm. Her eyes found his and held on, steady and sure. She did not cry. She did not beg. She was her father's daughter, through and through. Morath stood on the platform with his arms crossed. He looked pleased with himself, like a child who had found a new toy to break. This human child was found with stolen food in her quarters, the warden announced. His voice echoed across the silent plaza. The punishment for theft is 30 lashes. A murmur ran through the crowd. 30 lashes could kill an adult. For a child, it would be torture. David stepped forward. She did not steal anything. She is innocent. Silence. Morath did not even look at him. The evidence has been reviewed. The sentence is final. There is no evidence because there was no crime. David's voice rose. You are punishing her to punish me. You are hurting a child because you are afraid. Now Morath looked at him. The warden's black eyes narrowed. Afraid? Of what? Of you? He laughed, and the sound was like knives on glass. You are nothing. You are broken. You are already dead. You just haven't stopped moving yet. He gestured to a guard, who held up a shock baton. Blue electricity crackled along its length. You will watch, Morath said. You will watch every strike. And you will learn what happens to those who give me trouble. David wanted to scream. He wanted to charge the platform and tear Morath apart with his bare hands. He wanted to burn the whole station down right now, right here. Consequences be damned. But he looked at Lily, and she looked back at him, and something passed between them. A message. A promise. Not yet. Not now. Soon. David lowered his head. He let his shoulders fall. He became the broken man they expected him to be. The first lash fell. Lily made no sound. Her small body jerked, but she did not cry out. She bit her lip until blood ran down her chin, but she stayed silent. The second lash. The third. The fourth. David counted each one. He memorized the face of the guard holding the baton. He filed away every detail, every second, every drop of blood. 15 lashes. 20. 25. Lily's eyes never left her father's face. Even through the pain, even through the tears she could not stop, she watched him. She trusted him. She knew this was not the end. 30. The guard stepped back. Lily lay on the ground, shaking, her back a mess of burns and welts. But she was alive. She was still awake. She was still fighting. Morris smiled down at David. Take her to the medical wing. Let her heal. I want her healthy for the next time. The next time. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. David walked to his daughter and knelt beside her. Very gently, he lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. She felt like a bird, fragile and broken. But as he carried her away, she whispered in his ear, so quiet that no one else could hear. How much longer, Dad? 3 days, he breathed back. Just 3 more days, okay. She closed her eyes and rested her head against his chest. I can wait. The medical wing was cold and gray, like everything else on the station. A human doctor named Amy met them at the door. She had been waiting. She already had bandages and medicine ready. Put her here, Amy said, pointing to a bed in the corner. I'll take care of her. David laid Lily down as gently as he could. He brushed the hair from her face. He wanted to say something, to promise her that everything would be okay, but the words would not come. Lily opened her eyes. She looked at him with a wisdom far beyond her 7 years. It's okay, Dad, she said. I know the plan. I know what's coming. How? He had never told her the details. He had tried to protect her from the weight of it. She smiled, just a little. I'm your daughter. I figured it out. David felt tears burn in his eyes. He had not cried in 6 months. He had not allowed himself that weakness. But now, looking at his daughter, beaten and bleeding but still fighting, he could not hold them back. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I let this happen. You didn't let it happen. You let them think you're broken. She reached up and touched his face with a small, trembling hand. But I know you, Dad. I know what you really are. What am I? She smiled again, and this time there was something fierce in it. Something hungry. You're the honey badger. And honey badgers don't lose. David kissed her forehead. He stood up. He wiped his eyes and let the cold settle back into his heart. 3 days. 72 hours. Then the Vreth would learn what humans were really capable of. He walked out of the medical wing and back to his cell. He had preparations to make Dot behind him. Lily closed her eyes and began to heal. She would need her strength for what was coming. The storm was almost here. The lights went out at exactly 8:47 in the morning. For 3 seconds, prison station Keth 7 was completely dark. Guards stumbled and cursed. Prisoners froze in place. Somewhere deep in the station's heart, alarms began to scream. Then the emergency power came on, dim and red. And the real horror began. David Park stood in Reactor Control Room 7. His hands moving across panels he had memorized over 6 months of patient waiting. Around him, 3 other humans worked just as fast. Disconnecting systems, rerouting power, and turning the station's own infrastructure into a weapon. Cooling system offline, Grace reported from her station. Guard barracks sealed, James confirmed. Atmosphere venting in sectors 4 through 9. Communication array is ours, Tommy said, his young face lit by the red glow of emergency lights. They can't call for help. David nodded. Everything was going according to plan. 6 months of watching, learning, and preparing. 6 months of letting them think he was broken. Now, finally, it was time to show them the truth. He opened a channel to the station-wide intercom. Warden Morith. My name is Commander David Park, Republic of Korea Navy, retired. 6 months ago, you captured my ship. You put my people in cages. You beat my daughter in a public plaza while I was forced to watch. He paused, letting the words sink in. I want you to know that everything that happens next is because of that moment. Not because of the slavery. Not because of the deaths. Because you touched my child and smiled while doing it. He closed the channel and turned to his team. Phase 2. Let's move. All across the station, humans rose up. They had been waiting in position for days, scattered through every section, every work crew, every dark corner. Now, they struck Dot in the food processing center. Grace led a team of kitchen workers armed with knives and chemical sprays. They took out the guards before the alarm could spread. Dot in the maintenance tunnels. Mike and his fighters emerged from hiding with improvised weapons. Pipes, cables, sharpened metal. Nothing fancy, but deadly in the hands of desperate people. Dot in the medical wing. Amy sealed the doors and began preparing for the wounded she knew would come. And in the youth center, a group of teenagers broke through a wall that had been weakened over weeks of careful work. They led the children out through service corridors, heading for the ship bay, where 4 transport vessels waited. The Vreth fought back, but they were confused and afraid. They had never seen anything like this. The species they conquered usually died quickly or surrendered slowly. They did not turn stations against themselves. They did not smile while killing. Humans smiled. David moved through the chaos like a ghost. He knew every corridor, every shortcut, every blind spot in the camera system. He had planned this route 100 times in his head. Now he walked it for real, stepping over fallen guards and nodding to human fighters who cleared the way. His target was the command center. His target was Morath. The Warden had sealed himself in his fortress at the station's core. Heavy doors, armed guards, backup power that still functioned. He thought he was safe. He was wrong. David reached the command center doors just as the last guard fell. Mike stood over the body, breathing hard, a bloody pipe in his hands. "We got them all," Mike said. "But the doors are sealed. We'd need explosives to get through." David shook his head. "We don't need explosives. We have something better." He pulled out a small device, assembled from parts he had stolen over months. It looked like a mess of wires and circuits, but it was actually a masterpiece of engineering. A bypass key, designed for exactly this type of Vreth security system. He pressed it against the door panel. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the doors slid open. Mora stood in the center of his command room, surrounded by screens showing destruction across his station. His guards were dead or trapped. His communication system was broken. His power grid was failing. He looked at David with something he had never felt before. Fear. "This is impossible," the Warden whispered. "You are prey. You are nothing. You cannot do this. And yet here I am." David stepped into the room. Behind him, Mike and a dozen other humans spread out, weapons ready. "I will kill you," Morris snarled. "I will tear you apart with my own hands." "Maybe, but not today." David smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. "Today, you answer for what you did." He stepped aside, and the crowd of humans parted. Lily walked through the gap. She moved slowly, carefully, her back still bandaged from wounds that had not fully healed. In her hands, she carried a shock baton, the same type that had been used on her 3 days ago. Mara stared at her with wide eyes. For the first time, the great Warden of Keth 7 had no words. "You hit me," Lily said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the room like thunder. "You made my dad watch. You smiled while you did it." She took another step forward. "My dad taught me something about Earth animals. He told me about the honey badger. It's a small animal, not very strong, not very fast. But when something hurts it, it doesn't run away. It fights back. It never gives up. It never forgets. Another step. You hurt my dad by hurting me. You thought that would break him. But you were wrong. Honey badgers don't break." She raised the baton. Blue electricity crackled in the dim light. Morris looked past her to David. "Stop this. Control your offspring. I can give you anything: ships, freedom, revenge on those who sent me here. Just stop this." David's face showed nothing. "You struck the honey badger," he said quietly. "Now you deal with the cub." Lily looked up at Morris. She was so small compared to him, a child facing a monster. But her eyes held no fear. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. The baton came down. Mora screamed. An hour later, the station was quiet. The fighting was over. The Vreth guards who survived were locked in their own cells. The human prisoners were free for the first time in 6 months. David stood in the ship bay, watching the transport vessels power up. 300 humans were loading aboard, carrying supplies and wounded in hope for the future. Lily stood beside him, holding his hand. She looked tired but peaceful. "Is it over?" she asked. David looked at the stars beyond the bay doors. Somewhere out there, Earth waited. Somewhere out there, home waited. "Almost," he said. "We have one more thing to do." He turned and walked back toward the command center. There was a message to record, a warning to send. The Dominion needed to know what happened here. They needed to understand what they had started, and they needed to learn what would happen if they ever touched another human again. 3 weeks after the uprising, a Vreth patrol fleet arrived at Prison Station KETH-7. Admiral Zethkor commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive warship that had destroyed entire planets. He had received no communication from the station in 20 days. This was unusual. Warden Morath was many things, but he was never silent. The Admiral expected mechanical failure, perhaps a reactor problem or a communication breakdown. These things happened on older stations. What he found was something else entirely. The station still functioned. Lights glowed in the windows. Life support hummed steadily. From the outside, everything looked normal, but no one answered their calls. Zethkor sent a team aboard to investigate. They moved through empty corridors, past abandoned posts, through sectors that should have been full of guards and prisoners. The silence was complete. They found the first body in the guard barracks. Then another. Then dozens more. The human prisoners were gone. Every single one of them. The records showed that 4 transport ships had launched 2 weeks ago, heading toward unexplored space. They were long gone, but Warden Morath was still there. They found him in the command center, alive but broken. He sat in a corner, rocking back and forth, muttering words that made no sense. His body was covered in burns from shock batons. His eyes were empty, staring at nothing. "They came for me," he whispered when the soldiers approached. They came, and they smiled. The child smiled. She smiled while He broke off, shaking too hard to continue. Admiral Zethkor ordered his men to search the station's databanks. Everything had been wiped clean. Decades of records, gone in an instant. But one file remained, protected by a simple lock that was almost insulting in its weakness. They were meant to find it. The file was a video recording. When they played it, David Park's face filled the screen. He stood in the command center, surrounded by humans with weapons and hard eyes. Behind him, Warden Morath knelt on the ground, beaten and bleeding. The contrast was striking. The prisoner now standing tall, the jailer now broken. "This message is for the Dominion of Vreth," David said. His voice was calm, steady, almost friendly. "You have held humans as slaves for 8 months. You have beaten us, starved us, and killed our people for your amusement. You classified us as compliant prey. Easy to control, easy to break." He paused, and a slight smile crossed his face. "You were wrong." The camera showed more of the room. The damaged panels, the dead guards, the humans standing victorious in a place that had been their prison. "We are not warriors by nature. We do not want to fight. We do not enjoy killing. Most of the time, we are exactly what you thought we were. Peaceful, cooperative, focused on our own lives and our own families." His expression hardened. "But when you take our children, when you hurt our families, when you make us watch while you destroy everything we love." He leaned closer to the camera, and his eyes held something ancient and cold and terrible. We become something else, something that does not stop, something that does not forget, something that will burn down everything you have built to get one moment of justice. He stepped back and put his hand on Lily's shoulder. She looked at the camera with her dark eyes, calm and steady. "My daughter has a message for you," David said. Lily stepped forward. She was small and thin and still carried the marks of her beating. But there was nothing fragile in her voice. "We are going home now," she said. "We are going to find our families and our friends and everyone who thought we were dead. We are going to tell them what you did to us." She tilted her head slightly, and something shifted behind her eyes. Something old and patient and very, very angry. "If you follow us, we will destroy you. If you come to our world, we will destroy you. If you ever touch another human child, anywhere in this galaxy, we will find you." She paused. "And when we find you, you will wish we had just killed you quickly." The camera moved back to David. "This is not a threat. This is not a warning. This is a promise. We did not start this war, but we will finish it." He looked at Morris, still kneeling on the ground. "Your Warden will live. We want him to live. We want him to tell you what happened here. We want you to see what humans can do when you push us too far." The recording ended with a final image of Lily standing beside her father, looking into the camera. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. Then the screen went dark. Admiral Zethkor watched the recording 3 times. He did not move. He did not speak. When it was over, he returned to his flagship and sent an immediate transmission to the Dominion High Command. For 6 hours, the leaders of the Vreth Empire debated what to do. Some called for immediate retaliation. Find the human ships. Destroy them. Make an example that would echo across the galaxy. Others urged caution. The humans had taken an entire station. They had done what no other species had ever done. Perhaps it was wiser to let them go, to forget this ever happened, to focus on easier prey. In the end, they made a decision that would change Vreth history forever. They opened the official species classification database. They found the entry for humans, still listed as Category 3, compliant prey. They deleted it. In its place, they wrote something new: Species, Human Classification, Category Null Status. Do not engage in notes. See Incident Report KETH7. All Vreth vessels are ordered to avoid human space. Any contact with humans is forbidden under penalty of death. This species is not worth the cost. The order went out to every Vreth ship, every station, every outpost in the Dominion. It was the first time in their history that they had ever retreated from a species. It would not be the last time. They thought about the humans. Far away, in the darkness between stars, 4 transport ships flew toward a blue planet called Earth. Inside them, 300 humans slept and dreamed and healed. David Park sat in the pilot's chair of the lead ship, watching the stars pass by. Beside him, Lily slept peacefully, her hand still holding his, even in her dreams. They had survived. They had escaped. They had sent a message that would never be forgotten. And somewhere ahead, home waited. David smiled in the darkness. He thought about honey badgers, about small creatures that never gave up, about the power of patience and love and quiet fury. The Vreth had learned an important lesson. The galaxy would remember. Never mess with a human's child. Never strike the honey badger. And never ever think that just because someone is small and quiet and patient, they are not dangerous. Because humans remember. Humans wait. And when the time comes, humans fight back with everything they have. The stars continued to burn in the endless dark, and the universe held its breath.